And I'll say that from a person that, believe it or not, I was pro-Brexit. The reason I was because at the time I looked at it, I thought, you know, this is their country. Like, if this is your country, there's nothing, you're not a bad person for saying you don't want some people over there. That's bureaucracy telling you what to do in your own country. That's complete bureaucracy. That's like, if you want to borrow a pen from me, you need to ask the library for permission. The library needs to go to consortium. The council needs to have adjudication, and then 2 to 3 working days needs to go. That's a complete bureaucracy. That's not a way to run a country, and that shouldn't be that's how I looked at it. I thought, who cares about borders? It's their country. I can't go to Nigeria or Dubai or Pakistan and tell these men you shouldn't have a say on who goes in and who goes out or who lives. That's your country. That's what I thought at the time.
I just wanted the power to be in the hands of the people.
That's what I thought at the time. As I've sort of looked at it, and even the budget, the money about the NHS, of course I need that. It's not necessarily going to all go to NHS, but it's your money. You should have the power to dictate where that goes. As I matured a little bit more, as I looked at the surroundings, I thought they didn't have a problem with European immigration. What they had a problem with was non-European EU citizens who were able to enter the UK. So Africans, Asians who were French citizens, Italian citizens, who had that nationality, had that passport, who could come to the UK. So really it was just a racism thing. I look at it nowadays, I look at the anti-immigration stuff they're doing, and people say the word xenophobia. I say it's just more racism, because you wouldn't have a problem with Australian immigrants, American immigrants, Canadian immigrants.
I thought they did. I thought they had issues with like Polish ones and all stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying, but that's different because they don't speak English. They look at
non-English speaking.
They look at non-English speaking. They look at
and then coloured ones as a different.
That's our whole worst category.
The
people that they would the people that they would call gypsies, the people that they would call travellers, gypsies, foreigners.
Yeah.
They have a problem with them. They've got no issue with Americans, Canadians, any kind of English-speaking white people coming to this country.
They could have no skills but still get more respect.
They have, exactly. They have a problem with the non-English-speaking Europeans, but less so than they have a problem with, say, Nigerians, Ugandans, Africans, Indians. That's the truth of the matter. Look into it for yourself. They don't have a problem with immigration, bro. They have a problem with who they class as foreigners. And a lot of their justifications, these people come into our country and they do this and that. And I think, doesn't England have a problem with going to other countries and running amok in holiday destinations, football hooligans? Don't English people, but they don't see that.
There's no accountability because Britain's never been forced to take accountability like that.
For racism, for slavery.
Why would the citizens feel a sense of accountability in that sense? It's more of a sense of like, that's just what happened. That's how it is, and we
signed some laws. You should stop complaining. And I used to vehemently back them on that. Like, it's in the past. How can you give them reparations? I used to join debate site. One of them told me, I was foolish at the time to even think this. One of them told me the last British colony was Hong Kong in the 90s. That was 30 years ago. And you look at
Hong Kong love those guys, man.
You look at Hong Kong now. You look at Taiwan now. They're saying we could go to war with China over Taiwan. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Who do you think has more right to Taiwan, Britain and America or China? Answer honestly. Who do you think has more right to Hong Kong, to Taiwan, Britain and America or China? It's a simple question. It's a simple question. Just answer the question.
Purely geographically.
Purely culturally, geographically. What do you guys think?
I'll be honest.
Historically speaking, culturally, geographically, who has more of a right? Britain, who has more of a say? Who do you think should be more concerned about foreign powers involving in their borders over states like Taiwan and Hong Kong, China or Britain and the United States? I'll be
honest. I feel like there's a lot of countries that get involved in international politics and policies where they may not be directly involved, but they want to butt themselves in. In terms that's my general opinion. In terms of this specific case, I don't know enough to speak on it. I'll be honest with you. I don't know enough specifically about that. When it comes to other stuff, with political stuff, I'm saying British politics. I know exactly what I'm talking about. But the Taiwan stuff, I don't know too much on it.
I say even from a common sense perspective, look at something like, but these are countries that don't even speak English. their history, the only history and connection they have to Britain is that Britain colonized them. That's it.
Yeah.
Britain used to rule over China. They lost China, but they retained Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Because they retained Hong Kong for longer, and eventually they had to give it up because of post-Thatcher era. They're trying to say, oh, China, that's their own. Shut up. When will you lot take accountability? War in the Middle East is Britain and America's fault. I was educated by a person over Saudi Arabia and Britain's involvement in Britain and America's involvement in Saudi Arabia and funneling a group of people called the family of Ibn Saud. That's how they were named, Saudi Arabia.
Ibn Saud, yeah.
And Aramco, which is Arabian American oil. Like, it's so much history of meddling and interfering and you look at these countries. Why is there no peace? You look at the politicians. They call them shithole countries. Well, what you keep saying? Why do you want to come to Britain? Well, had you never been to those countries, maybe those countries would have been flourishing now.
Yeah.
Had you never infested the ideas that white people, light-skinned people, maybe they had those ideas to an extent in the past, but had you never put the cancer in their heart, the British, Europeans, Americans are better, this is the standard, they wouldn't be coming here.
I was gonna say we've got our own people bleaching our skin as well.
You got that, but
That's due to self-hatred over generations and trauma.
Britain catalyzed and caused that. To even just bring it back to the Taiwan example, now there's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of complexity to it. I can't simplify it. But if you ask anyone with common sense who has more right over a Taiwan, the reason I bring up Taiwan's about super chips, and the reason we might go to war with them is because China's sort of trying to exert control over them. If they were some useless country no one cared about, then we wouldn't say anything. But Taiwan has got some ownership over certain equipment that they use to manufacture semiconductors, which are used to manufacture microchips, which are used in cameras, these
Processors,
phones. Right. During lockdown, they were talking about, because of infrastructure shortages and so on and so forth, we were actually running out of superconductors and semiconductors and microchips. You remember the PS4 scandal? Like, nobody could get a PlayStation
It's in
4.
the processors, right? And
Yeah,
we weren't
no
able to
one
build
could get a
enough
PlayStation
phones.
4.
Yeah.
Everyone was trying to buy laptops to work at
PlayStations.
home. It's because of the infrastructure, but a lot of that's manufactured in Taiwan. Britain and America wants to get involved in that China-Taiwan beef. Why? Because the same reason they were getting involved in the Middle East, because of oil. They saw something beneficial. They want to keep their hands in their souls. And it's the same thing again and again and again and again. And then you ask why. They don't want to... They go to the UN and they keep meddling in votes in relation to causing ceasefires. But that's just a long-winded way of me saying, I used to be pro-Brexit. I used to be pro until I sort of clued in and I understood it's just more racism. It's just more financial interest. It's just more this, that, and they don't learn. They don't learn.
The way I see it is like you look at all the major superpower countries, so-called superpowers in the past. You've got the USSR in the last century, and then nowadays you've got China and Russia, which was obviously a smaller version of the original USSR. And you look at Ukraine, look at Taiwan, look at Cuba. These countries are all small countries which you wouldn't think a massive state like the US or UK would care about. But think about them again. I'm going to say them again. The USSR, Ukraine, Taiwan, and Cuba. And these countries are all in very small proximity to another larger country. So, like, why do we care so much about Ukraine? Because Ukraine is the closest link to Russia. Why do we care so much about Taiwan? Taiwan is the closest link to China. And then you've got these other countries like obviously like Afghanistan, Syria, etc. Like, you might not know their significance, but it's like it's much greater than the country itself. But it's a much more deeper political objective.
Geopolitical, international.
That they're trying to fight a war through another country and focus all media attention on that other country, so that you forget the real war is probably an ideological war between the West and the East, which is just getting hot again.
I think a lot of it ties back into the fact that the old powers will always stay in power. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think obviously the British Empire colonized so many countries, did so many things, whatnot, atrocities, etc. And obviously America jumped on that vibe after. I say on that vibe, but like after people migrated there, took over.
After Britain lost a lot of their power.
Yeah.
World War One.
I mean, if you really think about it, it's just they're just two peas in a pod, innit, really.
Well, they say it's the American
And-
Empire. Yeah, that's what they call it. When you have thousands of military bases across the world, it's an American empire.
Yeah, and I think like obviously I think they call them the seven great powers or something, isn't it? Like seven great powers, and obviously those countries I think they do have a lot. They have a lot of dictation, and I think this all kind of ties into how the British Empire is still relevant today as it ever was, in the sense that it's in power, in the sense that it's heavily involved in the UN. It will always have a very very big opinion. Like their opinion on every matter will always matter. And then I think there's also the aspect of their currency. I think the empire doesn't exist, but their currency is so heavily involved in exchange rates with how people operate and stuff. Especially the US dollar, right? That's one of the most common currencies in the world. And I think money is power, right? Money in itself is power, and also so is their political opinions because of their history. So I think these two aspects have led to them thinking that they're able to come in and dictate their own opinions when it comes to different countries and what they believe and what they think should politically go ahead. And once again, it's like you guys said, right? You were talking about how like the microchips and whatnot. You were talking about like how these, I don't know if you know about like countries like Colombia, they have like so many natural resources when it comes to crude oil or it comes to like a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the resources that these countries have affect these other larger countries in terms of political power, and hence because of that there is always going to be a deeper root as to why they want to get involved. You know what I mean? But you're right, I think the war between the West and the East will never truly end. You know what I mean? This Cold War never really stopped in the 70s or 80s, whenever it happened. It's still going on to this day.
I think there was only one winner of war, and it's not the people fighting. The people who actually win in any war is the people who sell the weapons. And then once you realise that the people who are selling the weapons are actually selling it to both sides, you realise that there is only one winner, and that's the weapons manufacturers. And like think of America and how much the firearm industry is worth, how many billions or trillions that's
It's a
worth.
military-industrial complex.
Like
It needs
What's
war,
that?
It's a military-industrial complex. It needs war to constantly.
Oh
keep
yeah,
it going.
because that's what
So-
I think financially they put most of the money into the military, don't they? It's like, what was that, 40% or something?
700 billion. So comparatively to the UK, they get about 600 billion. Let's say seven or 800 billion pounds annually.
Yeah.
Like, you have
And 7 or 800 in dollars annually. They spend maybe about 40 billion on the UK military, and they're saying this military is dwindling. They cut down numbers, etc., etc. In America, they get maybe 2 trillion US dollars taxes annually. They put about 700 billion in just the military alone.
Yeah,